How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Not too bad. What has made you start this podcast?
So for me, I learned so much over the last couple of startups that I've built, like an incredible amount of mainly what not to do.
Right.
So talking about fucking things up and learning lessons on how to build a startup, how to run a business without pretending you're the font of all knowledge, I think it's just a great way to communicate with people about what not to fuck up, right? Because I'm just a massive believer in learning from people. And my theory is if I push out that how I fucked up, less people are going to do it in the future and learn a bit from what I did.
So my question then is, for the people listening right now, or watching if you're on YouTube, or any of the social channels, is what did you do? Like, you're obviously a startup, a founder. Talk to me about your journey. What happened?
Yeah, so my first theory on this is that everyone could be an entrepreneur,
Right.
even if they're not a founder, right? So the first part of my career was military first, actually, but the second part was working in huge corporate organizations, right?
Okay.
And the theory that I've built is I was always an entrepreneur. And when we think about entrepreneur, often people say that's just a founder, right? That's someone who started their own business. That's someone who's had their own idea. But actually, an entrepreneur for me is someone who finds unique ways to solve problems.
Okay.
And you can do that in a big organization just as much as you can do it on your own as a founder or as a startup, right? So I think I always had that. Like I always addressed, cybersecurity is a great example of that. Like it's mainly old, boring white people, like let's be honest, right? And I approached it in a different way. Like I approached it because of my human intelligence background in the army. I approached it from a very people-centric way.
So that was actually going to be my question. What did you do in the military?
Yeah, so I was on the intelligence side. Did running around deserts with guns as well as like homeland security, which meant checking cameras and fence checking. Unfortunately, when you get into the civilian world, you realize that the running around deserts with guns isn't the bit that civilian employees like.
Right.
It's the bit where you check fences and do cybersecurity. And luck or judgment, I left the military just as cybersecurity was becoming this huge topic for enterprise businesses. So I had this kind of grounding in intelligence and security from the military and brought that in just at a time when chief security officers were just getting appointed in big tech companies, and that worked perfectly for me.
So is that what you did? You went into a chief security officer position, like in a corporate job?
Well, not direct. So I started with a much smaller business, so a defense-orientated company, because that's what you do when you've been in the military, like find something that's defense-orientated. And you learn to translate more than anything. Like most of the stuff that you do from a military perspective translates into the civilian world. It's just different words, right? So like, for example, in cybersecurity, we'd say an audit. In the military, you'd say an inspection, but it's the same freaking thing, right?
Okay.
And you translate that nomenclature and that language over. I speak to hundreds of people that are leaving the military now because they all come to Craig and go like, what do I do? How do I do my CV? And all that kind of good stuff. And you have to remember that, like I mentioned earlier, the boring bits, the translation, that's what's really key. Because you go to civilian employer and go, running around a desert with a gun, they're going to go, not quite sure how that relates to me. So you have to translate that stuff, you know.
So you've gone from the military, you've gone into a smaller job, corporate world. Let's get straight to the startups, mate.
Yeah, so I think straight through corporate, as I mentioned, like always been an entrepreneur, always been really people-centric, which I think honestly is the number one tip that I'd give to anyone. Is anyone knows this, if they're worth half a cent, people are the most important thing in almost anything that you do, right? So having the ability to lead people, having the ability to influence people, picking the right talent, all those things are people-centric things, right? And because of my background in human intelligence, which sounds a bit underhanded, you know, trying to make people do things you don't want them to do, all that kind of good stuff. But there's a really positive side to that as well, which is it allows you to be a people person, it allows you to be a leader, it allows you to adapt yourself as a chameleon to whatever environment you're in. So I find myself, I can get on with a heavily technical audience as much as I can get on with a business executive audience, you know, and being that chameleon and be able to interact with all those people is what stood me in good stead through my career and ultimately got me into startups in the end.
So then where did the idea to do the startup come from, to become a founder yourself?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a couple of different things came together at the same time, actually. So I'd had a load of startup founders I'd already existed in that world that were kind of friends and were all encouraging me because of my personality to do it. And And it's hard with these things. Like people say, take the leap, but you never know when that time's right. You know, you just don't know.
Is the time ever right?
I don't think it's a bit like having a kid, right? Like people, if you think about it and you overthink it too much, you never bother having a child because you think about money and you think about, am I old enough? Like, can I do this? Can I not? There's never a right time. Right? And one day it just freaking happens, or you take the leap and you deal with it, right? And that's a bit like starting a startup, you know? I think there is conditions. I don't necessarily sit with a school of thought that, you know, you should just leap from anywhere blind. Like, I don't think that's very good advice. It's got to be considered. Like, I love there's a great book by Jim Collins called Great to Good, and he says productive paranoia, right? And I love that phrase, right? Productive paranoia, because you've got to have productivity. You still got to keep going, but you've got to have enough paranoia that you're always checking yourself.
I think it kind of goes into the whole risk reward thing.
100%.
So like, but one thing that people always miss is it's not just risk reward, it's calculated risk
100%.
reward. Like you would have calculated that it was a good idea, you got enough background knowledge to actually jump into it, rather than some kid who might be listening to this now, and I'm not like downing people for what they're doing, but like if you've got no experience and you're going to go start a startup tomorrow, you're probably not going to get the results that you may have gotten just off the bat. So like, you're around these kind of people, you're around the same kind of circle, which is obviously, that's another massive thing, like being around the right people. Do you think that's like crucial to how you even got to where you got to?
Yeah, 100%. I think back to the point that you just made, I think I remember a maths teacher when I was at school explaining the difference between a guess and an estimation. And I think that's what you just articulated, right? Like a guess is like blind. It's like, oh, I think I'm going to do this. I'm just going to take a massive leap. I'm going to run blindly into something. An estimation is a degree of knowledge, right? You've got some understanding of the market, of the problem, whatever it is, and you feel equipped to go and address that. And I think they're really two different things. So I think, you know, when I did it, I had that background in cybersecurity. I've been running it for big organizations. I understood. I didn't fully understand the problem I was going to address. So that was the leap for me. But then also the biggest leap and kind of how personal and professional comes together. My father got really ill. So at the back end of, crap at dates, like 3 years ago, my dad got really ill at the back end of the year. I was in a really big corporate job. I took that really big corporate job while my dad was ill because I wanted to concentrate on the family and look after the family, and the time right to do that. When dad passed away in January, he'd always been the one that had said to me, you know, he's all very conservative, blue collar, like he was always like, take the safe job, take the safe option. And when dad passed away and I didn't have that to worry about anymore, which is a horrible kind of grief feeling.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
It gave me that drive to go, holy crap, like dad had passed away at 63 years old, like I'm growing older as well now. I was like, shit, if I don't do it now, when am I ever going to do it? And I truly believe it's like things come together at the same time, right? It's not one event, it's a number of different events. And at the same time, I was getting bored with my big corporate job, like I had itchy feet. I met someone in San Francisco who became my co-founder and encouraged me as well. And it just all came together at the right time. And I think it's a horrible, but I hate saying this because you don't. It's really hard if you've never been there, but you just know, right? Like
I get what you mean.
You feel the upswell, you feel that momentum where you're like, this, it's the right time now.
It's kind of weird, like, I know exactly what you mean. When I started my own business, I was working, you know, a very different situation to yours. I was early 20s, like I was still at university. I was working a co-op job, I was touring in a band, and I just didn't want to be in an environment where there was negative people putting you down all the time. So I had to get out of that like retail environment, and I just jumped into like recording. And similar to how you've had like a co-founder who was like, hey man, like let's do this. I had a mate who was like, bro, you got this. And I always feel like if you've got somebody in your ear who actually crushes that limiting belief, you then just the time fit you. It's. Do you know what I heard a CEO say it? I think it was Stephen Bartlett talked about it, where he said the pain of staying where you are outweighs the pain of taking that risk.
Massive.
And like the idea of where failure taking that risk is nowhere near as hard as it is in your life right now, which forces you to change. That's, I feel, when you get that like feeling. So I'm assuming you got that when you decided to go for the start.
Well, I think I've always had, I think as an entrepreneur, and again, it's all about balance, because this can be a negative as much as it can a positive. But I think you think about that relentless drive, like it's never enough. I've always had that. I've always, to a person, looked at my boss and thought, I could do that job. It didn't matter which company I was in. It didn't matter which business I was in. I was like, I could do that. I've never ever felt I couldn't. and even if that was the CEO of a FTSE 50 business and I was only 28 years old, I still sat there thinking, do you know what? I could figure that out.
Do you think that's like a key element, personality trait, should I say? That
think it
somebody
is.
as a founder needs?
I think it is. And there was some study that was done on like the 3 traits of incredible leaders or the most successful people. And one of them was that, like that relentless drive to always do more. And it can be a blessing or a curse, right? Because it's what keeps me up at night. I'm like, shit, what's next? All of the time. All of the time, like, what's next? What more could I be doing? What more could I be doing? But there's a massive trick, and I've only learned it recently, about being content but still being driven.
Right.
Like, trying to balance those 2 things is just so hard as a founder, because that relentless drive can keep you up at night, can become this complete negativity that nothing is ever enough, right? But it's finding the balance between having what's enough for me now, but it's not enough for me in the future.
So how do you get around that? Have you got like actionable steps you use, or?
I think it's just about balance, right? I think the tools that I use. So I was watching, I don't know if you've seen the Netflix documentary Stutz.
Yes.
I saw bits of this, right? I haven't seen the whole thing, I'll completely admit, but Jonah Hill with his therapist, right? And it's the first time I've ever watched a film about therapy that really resonated with me. And he draws this, I'll ruin this because I can't remember the whole thing, but he draws this incredible triangle and he talks about these 3 steps to get clarity, right? And the number 1 building block in that is about physical health, right? And I cannot emphasize enough. I've come from a military background. I've done physical stuff all of my life of all different. I've ran and then I cycled and then I went to the gym, done it all, right?
Yeah.
But I cannot emphasize enough how having control of the physical body just clears your mind to allow you to make the decisions that you need to make. You know, I go and ride my bike, we were talking about this earlier, I'll go and cycle for 50 miles or 60 miles or whatever it is, up and down hills, but it just, not only does it psychologically give me that time for meditation, but I really believe that it clears your body out so that your body doesn't have to worry about that stuff. It's like, I'm good.
It's like you're probably draining like all the hormones and like, you know, all the different kind of chemicals that are coming from your brain.
Yeah, I say like hay fever, right? Random, complete tangent. But things like hay fever, right? Well, I used to suffer really badly from hay fever, but only when I'm eating badly and I'm not looking after my body.
Really?
Because my body can't have the ability to deal with that allergy stuff because it's trying to fight all the crap that I've put in my body, or it's trying to fight the tiredness, or it's trying to fight the lethargy, right? Of me not being healthy and fit.
So that's kind of similar to when you drink alcohol, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Your liver, the first thing, so if you, it's really funny when you look at like a lot of gym bros, they go and eat like a massively heavy protein meal, like they're nailing their macros, and then they go put alcohol in their body. Your body will prioritize the worst toxin that's come into your body 100%. First. So if you put alcohol in it, it's not going to digest everything else. And it's not like it puts it on a pause and then digest. It has to do everything at the same time, but it will prioritize filtering out that alcohol, which means you don't actually get protein synthesis, or however, please do not crucify me. The internet.
Whatever the medical word is.
Literally, you don't get that straight off the bat because it's trying to deal with alcohol. So I'm guessing what you're saying is like your body was completely trying to get rid of all these toxins from bad food and, you know, not being in shape. And then that's it. Hay fever then hits you, and it can't deal with it.
Hasn't got enough
response.
left. Right? Like, and that's like that's the mental thing, right? It's like cloudiness of mind.
Right.
Like when I'm fitter, when I'm healthier, when I'm recovered well, right? All those things mean that I've then got the clarity of mind to be able to focus on the business. I've then got the clarity of mind to have new ideas, right? And you get caught in these cycles of like eating crap and not living healthily, and then your mind gets cloudy, and it's just really hard to break. So anyway, right back to the original point, like the Stutz thing, can't remember the other 2, but the bottom one just really resonated with me, because I've always thought, you know, people say about physical health and they're like, can't quite draw the line between that and your mental capability. I think that's it. I think that is it. I think it's such a fundamental building block of everything. And what he says is start with that. If you don't know the answer to a problem, just forget the problem and actually go back to yourself.
Cool.
Get yourself healthy, get yourself physically fit, and then everything becomes a lot clearer and you start to be able to handle those things.
Well, they say like, you know, one of the great like Stoics at the time was a man who used to walk everywhere. And he was I'm pretty sure he was Belgian, and he literally would walk through town at all times for hours and hours. And the reason he was doing it is because walking and I know like you know you said you got on the bike for like 50, 60 miles, and like I'm massively into weightlifting. So like we're doing quite extreme stuff to our bodies, but this guy was literally walking, and it was the best thing for meditation and clarity of like mind, and like letting your brain process thoughts for as long as you possibly can. So I definitely agree with you on that one.
Yeah, and I think, and back to the point about meditation, I really like that because that's a great example of flexibility, right? Because you hear a lot of these online people go on about have to meditate in the morning, or have to go to the gym at 4 a.m. None of those things matter. Not when you do it doesn't matter to me. Like what you call it doesn't matter to me, right? I couldn't give a crap. My meditation is riding my bike. Yeah. I'm on my own, I'm clear, I'm focused. Some of my best ideas, you ask my co-founder Steve, I'll jump on a Zoom call immediately after getting off the bike and go, holy shit, what about this? Yeah. And he's like, shit, it's a really good idea, let's note that one down. And they come off 60 miles of riding, which is not at all focused on what I need to be focused on. So I think, you know, those things, being flexible, you hear meditation, what's your meditation, you know?
So with, I know we were talking a little bit about this earlier, so with becoming a founder and you're in that first year of startup, you're going to be working a lot of hours here. Oh, yeah. So is there got to be like, is there a work-life balance for you, or?
You know I hate that, you did it on purpose. I think, you know, for me, I just hate that. Let's start from that. That phrase is bullshit. I hate that. I hate the juxtaposition or the confrontational nature of that phrase, like work life. They're two completely separate things. Like me and you know, we've done this, we're building businesses, right? I've done it multiple times over. But actually, I don't think it's just about building business. I think it's like when you walk in those big corporates as well. Like work-life balance means that you're choosing.
Right.
Am I working or am I living? And that just can't be the case if you're building a business. It just can't. Right? You have to go with where your mind and body is telling you, where your energy is telling you need to be, right? I say this to Steve, I say this to my team all the time, right? If you feel like you need to do some work and it's freaking 2 o'clock in the morning, do some work. Like, don't go, oh shit, this should be my lifetime now, not my work time, so I'm going to force myself to do life. That's just not how this works, right? You're passionate about what you're doing, you're passionate about what your work is, you're passionate about what your life is. It doesn't diminish from each one. You just do it, and you do it in the way that makes it flexible for you. And I think that's what makes you successful.
Do you know what? I've got to really agree with you, and I've got a really good example of this. My little sister's an artist, right?
Yeah.
And since 2020, obviously with COVID, she'd finished and graduated from university at that point, but she'd really ramped up, like posting on social media every single day, like doing art, all this sort of stuff, and making it a business.
You didn't do it for her?
No. I gave her some tips, and then she just outgrew me, and she flew with it. But she, like, this year, sold out stuff and has gone viral and has like massively like 10x'd her business in 3 months. Super it's cool. So fucking cool. Yeah. But she has always, and it's stunned me because I am someone who's like 16-hour days. I'm quite rigid in like almost military style, where I'll be like, you just keep going until you die, kind of style thing. Yeah. Whereas she was always like, I don't feel like working today. Yeah. And I kind of look at her like, yeah, but you've got so much to do. She's like, but I just don't feel it.
Yep.
And then the next day she's like, I really feel like working today. Yep. And then she'll work like an 18-hour day.
Yeah.
And then she'd be like, she'd have like 2-3 days off. And she's like, I just need to recoup. I need to let my brain rest. And I'm kind of looking at her like, if I couldn't do that in what I'm doing right now, and like it confused the hell out of me. But in the 3 years, she is 10x'd her business through literally the style that you just said, which is you listen to your body, you listen to your brain, work when it needs it, rest when it needs it. I mean, like I guess the whole point of being a founder, a startup, owning your own business, entrepreneur, serial, whatever you want to say, the whole point of it is that you kind of do what you want on your time, not somebody else's, which is why you're not in another job. So would you say that is kind of the point you're getting across with that?
Yeah, I think so. And having trust in your own capabilities, having trust, and it sounds like what your sister did there, is have trust that when she was ready, she was going to freaking nail it.
Yeah,
right. And I think that's what you've got to have trust in your own capability to be able to do that. Because actually, that's a braver thing to do in many respects than working 16 hours a day. Because you sit there going, right, I've got to do this shit. Like I need to create good shit, and it's not going to come out in that environment.
I agree.
Right? Yeah. So what you're going to do is you're going to give yourself that time to go. It's not freaking work. It's not working. Right? So I'll go back to my physical self and I'll go and ride my bike, or I'll go and kick the ball around with Harry in the garden, whatever I'll do, and then I'll come back to it and trust that it'll come back. It's in here. Like I know I've got it in me. I've been there, I've done it, I'm going to do it again. So wait till that time when the time is right to have those things, and trust in the process. Trust that it's going to come out.
So talk to me about the first year then. First year of startup. Talk to me about your first founder experience?
Oh, this is my favourite bit. Like, I'll tell you now, I'll honestly get bored 3 years in. I'm pretty sure of it. Like when we get to a certain size, like this first bit is incredible. Like I love that Swiss Army knife nature of a founder's life, right? Like I'll sit there. And I'll be doing a financial spreadsheet 1 minute, and then I'll be filming freaking podcast content with you the next minute, and then I'll have to write some stuff for social media, and then I'll be pitching a VC or a customer. I love that. Like, I love that feeling of doing it all and owning it, right? Yeah. As people start to take that off me, I get a little bit like,
yeah, I get what you mean.
I want to do that. I still want to do that. I still do. I mean,
still want to be involved, wear the hat.
Yeah, lucky enough that I'm still the boss, so I can still dive in where it makes sense for me to do so. But yeah, I love this. I love this first year and a half. It's incredible.
So talk to me about what mistakes I should, if I was starting a business or I'm a founder here, I've got a really cool idea. Talk to me about what mistakes I should be looking to avoid within the first month, let's say.
That's a really good question. So I think first month is tough, right? That's a short period of time. I think my number one tip for anyone going into this journey is not be egotistical enough to think that the idea that you've had first off is going to be the one that changes the world ultimately. Right? It's probably not going to be. I mean, there are probably exceptions to that. I'm sure, there are plenty of exceptions and extremes out there. But for the most part, startup founders will tell you that first idea you have is probably more a thesis or a theory than it is a fully baked idea, right? So for that first month, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, go find that customer. Go find the person that you think you're selling this tool and just listen. No one listens enough, right? What you get is startup founders, and I'm guilty of it as much of any, preaching how good their freaking idea is that way at you, right? No one says, tell me what you think you need from a security perspective, right? And listen, and just listen and take it in, right? I see too many startup founders like, this is the idea, let me go force it down the throats in a very car salesman-y type way to the customer. And that's not the way to do it. That first month, in fact, look much longer than that first month, should all be about listening to the people that you target and finding out if that thesis is going to work and then pivoting on it.
Do you think that a lot of people kind of have a FOMO effect with their products within that first month, which is why maybe they're like trying to tell everybody how good their product is? Because they're like so afraid that somebody else might come along with the same idea and pick them to the post. So they're like, oh, I've got to tell everybody.
Yeah.
Is maybe that the kind of mindset behind it? Do you think?
Yeah, I think the problem with that, actually, I think it shouldn't be even about what the idea or product is that early.
Right.
I think it should be about, I have a pain point that I'm observing in an industry, right? So for cybersecurity specifically, it's like, I can see that small businesses are struggling with cybersecurity. The solution to that, I don't fucking know right now. And it doesn't matter that I don't know.
Right.
But what I found is a pain. I found something that is hurting people or hurting businesses, and that's the problem that I'm going to set out to solve.
Right.
Too many people come up with a solution first. They go, here's the solution, this is what I'm going to ram down your throat. And then that clouds them. They don't hear what people are telling them.
Do you think that also is short-lived? I definitely know, like within my experience of working with other businesses, wherever I've done business development, a lot of businesses have a solution to a problem that's actually not as widespread as they thought. And I think that comes off the back of what you've just said, which is a lack of R&D.
Yeah.
So if you have a lack of research and development and knowing who your customer is, and you're trying to give them a solution that actually they don't really need. Telecoms is a great example. It's just come to my mind. Telecom providers will create a massive range of solutions to a business and then just force it to them.
Yeah.
What my friend did differently is he brought in and he created a telecoms company called Bespoke Solutions.
Okay.
Literally, because he calls them, he says, hey, see you got a telecoms package.
Yeah.
Looks like you got about 6 or 7 bolt-ons.
Yeah.
I've actually looked at your business and you only really need 4.
Yeah,
so you're overpaying for your telecom service.
Yeah.
Do you want a cheaper telecom service? And everyone's going to go, yeah.
Obviously.
Like, why am I paying for stuff I don't use?
Yeah.
And then they're going to go with him where they can add on stuff afterwards if and when they need it.
Yeah.
So that for me is a really good example of literally what you've just said. Spend that first month massively looking into R&D.
Yeah, just listen, learn, understand, right? And I think, and the reason that you need to go in with that open mindset of not having the solution but understanding the pain point is because you don't over-engineer it in that first month or whatever the time scale is, right? You're not trying to force a square peg into a round hole. You're ultimately just learning and sucking in what it is that people are telling you. What they're telling you hurts them, right? And then you go and solve that problem.
So have you found in your experience with your 2 startups you've done previously. What have you got an anecdote or a situation that you could give as an example? Because that could probably help some listeners or viewers right now if you're on YouTube.
Yeah, well,
kind of get around.
I've got more examples of fucking up than I've done it right, to be honest with you, right?
Lay it on me.
So let's think of an example. So last time around, we touted our business as being focused on small to medium-sized businesses, right? That's what we thought we were going to solve. And we built a platform, we built a product before we tested it. Like we thought, we're the cybersecurity experts. This is how you solve that problem, because we know. So this is what you need as a solution. Now that works for a short period of time. Because the point is, if you've got a really enigmatic salesperson or you've got someone who's great at selling shit, they'll probably go and ram it down enough throats. Like they just will. And you'll get that early traction and you get those early sales. And you made a great point there, which is actually it's after that period. You said a month. For us, it was like 12, 18 months because you get a bit longer. But actually, that's when pain starts to hit. And what we found was, because we hadn't found the right pain point and we hadn't found the right ideal customer profile, we'd sold to the wrong customers. And actually, by the time they got 18 months down the line, they were churning. Because they were like, this is too expensive for us, or this is too overkill for us, or this is not what we need, right? And it took them 12 or 18 months to realize that. But then the problem is, from an investor perspective or from a stakeholder perspective, whoever's helped you to build that business, you've created this incredible trajectory where you're like making money, making money, making money, making money. And then all of a sudden it goes, shit, we don't really need this.
Right.
So actually that's worse than if you just spent a month in the first place understanding what the pain point was. Because then you find yourself in this horrible dip where your gross profit margins are suffering, your customers are churning, and actually you've had 18 months of fun, but now it's screwed.
It's bad times.
Bad times.
Right. Interesting. That's a really good point, actually, to put across to people. And I've got to say, I can think of many examples in my own journey that has happened with multiple different kind of ideas I've gone with.
Yeah. It's easy to kid yourself that, like the phrase that they use in investing is product market fit, right?
Right.
The key, the gold standard for that early part of a startup journey is product market fit. Like, does your product fit the market that you're trying to sell to, right? And early indications of that are often not the right ones, right? So early indications of that can be, oh, we've got 10 or 20 customers. This must be the perfect idea. Well, wait, let's look at the size of the audience that you're talking to. We're talking of hundreds and hundreds of thousands, probably millions of startups. Only 20 buying it? It's probably not enough data to give you the feeling that you've got perfect product market fit.
Right.
So you need to keep going, you need to start building, but the key to that is listening.
What would you say in the first year? So obviously I said within the first month, what's a mistake?
Yeah.
Let's go first year, let's open it really up.
Yeah.
What would you say is a mistake to avoid? I mean, that one was, that's probably one of the best things I think I've ever heard from somebody to do with founding and starting up. Like, actually just slow down for 2 seconds.
100%.
Nobody's going to come in and crush you. Like, and if they do, they're probably working harder than you, so you've got to get your ass in gear. Like, just that market research is so prominent. What would be the next thing within the first year? What are you saying to people to be like, look?
Well, if you're a founder, even if you're a solopreneur or you're trying to build a big business, the number one job of any CEO running any business is never fucking run out of money.
Right.
Number one. Number one. Forget everything else. Your number one job is not to fucking run out of money.
Right.
Because that means you let down the business, your business can't exist, the people that are working for you can't get paid, like all of the else things just fall by the wayside.
Right.
Never run out of money. Right. So your number one focus as a founder throughout that first year is, where is my next money coming from? Like, how do I pay the bills? How do I keep the lights on? How do I operate? Right. And that's got to be your number one focus as any CEO. And number two is hiring people. Number two is about finding the right talent. Right? Because a lot of people, and you see this time and time again, people will either hire one of two ways. They'll hire someone who is a yes man because they want people underneath them to tell them what they're saying is right and just validate their ideas. Or they'll go and hire someone who's exactly the same as them.
Right.
How does that help? Like, if there's two Craigs running around, we're going to have the same ideas and we're going to make the same fucking mistakes. Because we're going to take the same decisions in the same circumstances.
Do you feel like if you've hired someone who's similar to yourself, that actually you almost get more annoyed at them when they do make a mistake, because you see it in yourself, so subconsciously you're like, why would you do that?
Why would you do that? Yeah, when I know I would have done it as well.
Yeah, it's like a self-reflection.
Yeah, probably to some extent. I mean, I think back, there's not many people like me, so I haven't hired them. But thinking back, I think, if I think about people that were like me, I think So it's much more stark in a startup, right? So I think back to like my enterprise days, massive corporation days. You can have 20 Craigs running around and you just disperse them.
Right.
Just put one in frickin' North England and one in South England and we're going to be all right. The problem with startup is everything is just massively magnified. Like another fuck up we made last time around was making mistakes in key strategic hires, right? And remember, it's only you that can make that mistake. The person's not wrong, right? The person is never wrong. The person is just in the wrong business.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like,
Interesting.
there's this attitude, this negative attitude of like, oh, you fucked up. I hired you and you fucked up. No, I hired badly.
Right.
I hired the wrong person for that role. Yeah, that person was always going to be you. You were always going to do what you were going to do.
Yeah.
Right? I fucked up because I put you in the wrong place and enabled you in the wrong way. Right? So it's all about accountability as a startup founder. It's like looking back to my cybersecurity days, the one reason that I was successful is because what you find in cybersecurity is that everyone goes, it's someone else's fault. Or you hear,
right,
they're not listening to me. If I tell you you've got to change your password and you don't do it, who's to blame? Cybersecurity people say it's you.
Right.
It's fucking not you. It's because I didn't tell you the right way to do it. Why would you? Why would I? You know? Why would you do what I'm telling you to do if I'm not compelling you to do it in the right way? So it's my fault. It's my accountability. And I think that with the whole startup stuff. Like there's not enough accountability. If I hired the wrong person, I need to fix that.
Do you know, that's something that I definitely kind of makes me feel a little bit better about how I do this now. Is no, 100%. I'm the same as you, mate. Like, you have to take accountability for every action. Like, if you run a business, know everything that happens, good or bad.
Yep.
You have to think, okay, what did I do in that situation, and where could I have done it better,
100%.
or what can I learn from this?
Yep.
It's my fault. So like, if one of my employees go off and do something for a client comes back and says, I really don't like that.
Yeah.
I'll be like, right, okay, well, I obviously didn't get my employee to the correct knowledge base to be able to execute
100%
on that content properly,
Yeah.
or on that website properly, or whatever I'm doing, business strategy or marketing campaign. That's all. The buck stops at me, and I think the second you crack that in your mind to, hey, everything is your fault.
Yeah.
Good and bad.
Yeah.
Then you will be more successful.
Yeah.
Because you then start thinking about things a little bit better.
You do, and that's the difference, right? Because it might not always be your fault, and that's fair. I understand that criticism. It's probably not always your fault. But going in with that mindset means you're always going to learn something.
Yeah.
Regardless if it is your fault or not, the other guy could have been a complete fuck up, and actually it was always going to fuck up because he's useless. But you're still going to learn from that experience because you're going to examine that and you're going to go, well, what could I have done differently? Even if it didn't change the outcome, you're going to learn from it. So that mindset is so important.
I guess it's the whole firefighter putting out fires in the first year kind of mentality.
100%. And I love, so there's a leadership book written by a Navy SEAL, and his theory on startup leadership is just focus on what's going to kill you next. Right?
Wow.
Like a soldier, right?
Yeah.
What is going to kill me next? Is it the competition? Is it running out of money? Is it, economic conditions? What's going to kill me next? And that, in that first year, that's the same thing, firefighting. Like, what is it that's going to fucking kill me next?
Amazing.
And when you focus on that, you can't do much wrong, quite frankly, because you're going to give the survivability of the business much more credence and much more flexibility.
Brilliant. Bro, this has been a great podcast.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. It's cool. For the first one, right? Not too bad.
Mate, absolutely killed it. I've really enjoyed interviewing you for this. So I think we should wrap it up here because there's quite a lot. We've kind of word vomited at people, which is brilliant. I'll probably be on the next podcast.
Sounds
then
good.
Finally, we should get your co-founder Steve,
to
come and join us. And get him to start giving some words of wisdom.
For sure. And I'm a massive learner, so we'll bring some other people on, share some opinions, mix it up a bit, just get views and opinions from different places, because I think that helps to grow your mind, and that's got me where I am. So
amazing, mate. Cool. Tune in for plenty more content to come.